Welcome back to Sunrise. Well, we'll turn our attention now to something different from what we did previously. It's the elections, and then from then on, ultimately, how do we ensure we attain credible elections? Rivers just had some elections now. There are several questions as to if it's been concluded. Mr. Isaac Anumudu joins us. He is a legal practitioner. Good morning and thank you for joining us today. Well, some of the rhetorics coming through from Rivers in terms of what has also happened. We do have a report which we'll bring to you in a moment, but tell us first and foremost your impression about the elections you've seen recently conducted in Rivers.
Well, my impression, which is obviously similar to the impression of most well-meaning Nigerians, is that the Independent National Electoral Commission and security agents all need to up their game if we must continue to sustain the hard-won democracy that we're enjoying in this country as of today. You and I know how much sacrifices was made by pro-democracy activists, whether you call them Nadeko, whether you talk about the solo individual efforts of great lawyers like Ganifa Ohimi, or you talk about those in the G34, and all those persons, some of who sacrificed their lives to enthrone democracy and to make military coup d'etat, which was the order of the day in this country, a thing of the past. Those sacrifices must not be frittered away by the greed of desperate politicians, by the ineptitude, incompetence of some INEC officials, and the conspiracy of some overzealous or sided security agents who ought to be strictly neutral in electoral processes like what we just had in River State.
Jumping, you know, it's a little more, it's complicated because listening to you, you've talked about some INEC officials, some security agencies, and it looks like a complex whole. How do we begin to untie this, identifying where these challenges are coming from? Then we can begin to nip them in the bud.
Yes. To hit the nail at the head, when you want to deal with a problem, you must go to the head. It's a problem of leadership. And that's where I would appeal to the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, President Muhammad Buhari, who is highly respected in this country and beyond, and who has a name to preserve for himself and for posterity, to rise up to the challenge of preserving our democracy in view of what has been happening in recent times. Don't forget, we've had elections under the former president who belonged to a political party and who made it very clear that INEC must be allowed to do their job independently. And political parties different from the party in power at the center were winning elections and the results being announced, and even the president congratulating those winners from the opposing political party. That is the kind of clear message the president will need to send, both to INEC at the highest level and to security agents all over the country. Otherwise, if what happened in Rivers continues to happen in every other part of the country, you can imagine what the 2019 election is going to look like. People are going to lose faith in INEC, people are going to lose faith in security agents, and people are going to have no option but to take their political destiny in their hands. Thuggery and militancy and brigandage will become the means of winning election. And when that happens, we would have unwittingly be creating excuse for whoever would want to truncate our democracy to say, gentlemen, if politicians can't handle their matters, let's handle it for them. God forbid, we don't want that situation.
If I may come in here, there are those who are concerned that the independence of INEC is really in question here. That's why we'll have this kind of situations being perpetrated over and over in different elections. So is it possible to really get INEC to be as independent as the word independence ought to be in order to deliver quality elections?
I agree very well that you are very correct with the views of most Nigerians as to where the problem comes. Strictly speaking, the independence of INEC. And like you have asked, it is very possible for INEC to be independent. just recently, it is the same INEC that conducted a national election that was widely acclaimed to be credible, where a sitting president was defeated in an election, and the election result was so announced and insisted upon by INEC, and that president, conceded defeat, and we had a smooth transition. So it shows us that it is very possible for INEC to be independent. But like you keep hearing in various parables, once the head of the fish is rotten, it will affect the entire part of the fish. If you bring that to politics, once the president of this country insists that he wants independent INEC, INEC will be independent. He will instruct, I want a free and fair election. And if the president who appoints most of INEC commissioners and chairmen, and who can also remove or recommend their removal, insists, I want free and fair, credible election, INEC will have no choice but to do that. I'll give you an example. You know very well that most lawyers, much of our complaint has been the abuse of the rule of law by the security agencies, particularly the police. But take example, in recent times, since the incoming of the present Inspector General of Police, if you check very well and if you talk with lawyers who are actively in practice, they will tell you that the incidences of human rights abuse by the Nigerian police, it has not been eliminated completely. There are still pockets of it here and there, but it has been reduced drastically within the past few months of the coming into office of the present Inspector General of Police. Why is it so? The IG simply had meetings with the top brass of the police high command and said, gentlemen, we want a democratic police force where human rights will be respected and nobody should be detained for more than 24 hours on criminal allegations as required by law, except if it is for matters like borderline or capital offense like murder, armed robbery, terrorism, or...
Well, Mr. Anumudu, several reports of, they say, security agencies. We saw men in police uniform, as we saw some of the insignias written on those uniforms, holding guns, harassing. In fact, our reporter told us, I mean, they chased after them. They almost actually harmed them. Some were brutalized. And incidentally, we understand now that the police say that they will go ahead and investigate this. But from what you've seen, you think that the next elections, all of this will be corrected?
Yes, that's what I was just telling you, that it's so very possible to correct these things very easy by dealing with them from the top. Like I was talking before the interlude, from the time the new IG of police gave instructions about the issue of unlawful detention of suspects, particularly in Abuja here, you find out that when people are arrested now and investigation is ongoing, except for capital offenses, they are released within 24 hours, maximum 48 hours, because there was a clear directive by the Director of Police. The same thing, if the president wants a credible election, all he needs to do is instruct the INEC High Command, I want you to be fair and free in your conduct of elections, failing which sanctions will follow. Once the president does that and means it, because his oral language must correspond with his body language, once that is true, INEC will follow suit. That was what the former president did, and that was why we had credible elections in 2015. The same thing must happen if the present IG also instructs all police officers, be apolitical, be neutral, don't get involved in anything outside protection of electoral materials for INEC. They will keep to that. What you saw in the script that just played out could be called simple brigandage. It was an invasion. And like the police are saying, these are not their men. If truly these are not their men, the police should go all out to fish out who these men are. They're not faceless. We have them on camera. We have them on television. The citizens who they brutalize know them and can identify them. If the police can go after them and visit on them the full weight of the law, this kind of thing will not repeat itself in 2019. But if it is handled with kid gloves, then I fear for 2019, because every politician will have no option but to equip and arm himself and maintain his own private army. You can imagine what election will look like in such a scenario.
Well,
that's
indeed,
what we must avoid at all costs.
You know, yes, so we'll have to anchor that point, but also importantly to note, because if the police say those are not their men, how did they get those uniforms How did they get guns? Is that thuggery raised to a higher level? How do we sort all those out? Those are the questions in the days ahead that we'll be hoping to get answers. So we thank you, Mr. Isaac Anumudu, a legal practitioner, for talking to us today on the program. And that's where we draw the curtains today as well on the program today. We appreciate all your comments and we hope that you keep the conversation going. Thank you for watching. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
I'm Nel Taigbe. Have a good day.